You're listening to the Dibbly-Dobbly podcast. Remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, and click the bell to make sure you get the latest episodes of the podcast. Be sure to like and share our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. So, Bharat, as I do with all my guests that I've interviewed on the podcast, I'd like to take them back to when they first got into cricket. And it's been very fascinating listening to people's memories on how they started to get into cricket. So, Bharat, let's go back to the very beginning, growing up. I know that's a long time ago. How time flies. What were your earliest memories of watching, playing, and even going to the cricket? And who were some of the cricketing idols that you looked up to growing up?
In my case, Jack, cricket was just life for me. And I've spoken about it a lot in recent times anyway, about how, I discovered life when I discovered cricket. So my first memories of life itself are watching cricket. It was in India, West Indies, ODI played in Australia, of all places. I don't remember much about what I did before then, the first 5.5 years of my life. And for some reason, my parents never had too many stories of what I was up to before I discovered cricket, like I said. So it's just been like my identity from a very, very young age. And for some reason, it was always the West Indies for me, even though, like I said, that first game was India-West Indies, which West Indies lost to start with. And it was also at the start of their decline. This is the very, very, like the start of the 1990s. So they were still a force. I mean, they still hadn't lost a test series in quite a while. But you could see that the writing was on the wall. All the greats from the 80s had more or less retired or were on the verge of retirement. So my first cricketing hero was Brian Lara. And he stayed my cricketing hero for a long, long time after that. Cricket was just what I did. I woke up to cricket. I went to bed with cricket. I spoke about cricket. I went to school and I wrote about cricket, even though what I was writing on had nothing to do with cricket. Essays, all my school essays were on cricket, and most of them weren't marked very well because the teacher would come back and say, like, why are you writing about cricket? This has nothing to do with cricket. So I just tried to intertwine everything I could with my love for cricket. And I think it was more than love and passion. There are millions of Indians who grow up loving cricket and being passionate about cricket. For me, I think it was a few steps above that. It was just it meant everything to me. So I know, I'm sure you've had some fascinating stories from people about how they discovered cricket, but for me, like, I don't know life without cricket.
Yeah, I can relate to that, Bharat. Yeah, I was like you in school. Every English essay I would write about cricket and narratives and all that stuff. And I can remember the English teacher I had in high school really liked this story I did about cricket. I think I used Alan Border and Mitchell Johnson, and it was like facing the West Indies, and I think Mitchell Johnson got hit, and then AB said, "Get up," that sort of manner that AB used to do in his career. Yeah. Get up, and tough it out and all that stuff. So I can relate to that, and just like you, cricket's part of my life as well, and it's been a constant in my life as it has for you, and it just makes you happy. You do everything, and that's what the game's about. You play it, you cover everything. You're just tragic, and people say, "Is all you talk about is cricket?" Yes,
yes, nothing wrong with it.
Especially when you're talking to cricket like-minded people like you and me today. Yeah, we can just go on for different tangents and different things and reminiscing about things in yesteryear and that growing up and all that stuff. Correct. Even though we're in two different generations, of course. I was the late 90s and you were during that period of the 80s and 90s and that growing up. So different generations, but still cricket still has a common thread. And
very much so. Yeah.
With that. How would you describe yourself as a player, Bharat?
I was actually not a bad player. I was a bowler primarily. So I took the new ball. I was left arm. I was decently quick at one point in my life, but I could always swing the ball around. And I just genuinely loved bowling more than I did batting. And I wasn't the worst with the bat, but I just even now, actually, when I do get the chance, I can just bowl for hours in the nets. I just was always fascinated by the concept of bowling and setting up batters and all of that. So I played. I couldn't play for school, sadly, because I went to a convent which strangely did not have cricket. And that's the kind of, people just assume everybody plays cricket all the time in India, which is not how it is. Like, there are still schools. So soccer and basketball were the main sport at the school I went to. So which meant that I had to go find like play cricket elsewhere, or like for a cricket club, and it happened to be the same cricket club that the famous, no, not famous, Sachin Tendulkar, the great Sachin Tendulkar played for. So it's a pretty famous cricket club in Mumbai, in Shivaji Park. So my days from the time I was, I guess, in grade 4 was I'd go to school, which is not too far from where I lived, at 6:37 in the morning. And our school days were long, so we wouldn't get done till 3 o'clock, and then go to Shivaji Park, which is the other end of the city, play cricket, and then come back, at 7 or 8, and then, like, rinse and repeat. So I was good enough. I played for college, I played for university, but that was it. Like, yeah, so I was probably like, I reached my level. I would not. I would be lying if I said, oh, I was made for international cricket. Attitudinally, maybe yes. I think I would have made. If more than anything, my press conferences would have been fabulous. So, I do. So even now, so when I get a chance to play the occasional game, like we played a couple of games in Sri Lanka last 2 months ago, or wherever, I back myself. Like, and when I say back myself, I back myself to field everything, catch everything, and run between the wickets like I always could. Like, yeah, but obviously the pace is not there anymore with the ball, but I can still, like, be very metronomic, like hit the spot over and over again. So with my bowling action as well, off the wrong foot, I think I'm 2 months shy of turning 40. It's taken a load on my body over the years, my left knee in particular.
Yes, especially bowling off the wrong foot. Well, quite a few international players did. Mark Proctor from South Africa did that. He bowled off the wrong foot, and some other players have done that in the game's history. So you're not alone there, Bharat. Even international players bowl off the wrong foot.
Oh, there's nothing wrong with it. Like, yeah, so every time I see Virat Kohli or Harry Brook bowl, both of whom kind of like, the one thing I learned with bowlers who bowl off the wrong foot is, at times it is a bit of an illusion. Like, it's not that you do bowl off the wrong foot. It's just about how you jump, and, like, at the point of release, what foot of yours is taking the or the way it lands as well. So it's quite. So the one thing, though, I could never bowl a no ball. Like, it's physically impossible for me to bowl a front foot no ball anyway, because my front leg kind of retracts this way when I bowl. So I've never bowled a no ball in my life, and I just can't. Like, if I bowl a no ball, then maybe I'm not bowling with my natural action. So there are a few advantages when you bowl off the wrong foot.
Yes, definitely, especially for no balls. And then obviously you do a bit of umpiring as well.
Yeah,
we're both umpires at heart, and we know the laws inside out. I'm pretty sure everyone, probes you in the press box when you're in games. Saying, what happened here? Is that out? Is that not out? You were there for the Ashes in 2023, and obviously I watched it on YouTube when you were on radio with Adam Collins, and I think Jeremy Coney, and he was flicking through the law book when that happened with Bairstow and the incident there, and you were just sitting there saying, "Yeah, he's out."
Yeah, no,
that was exactly what I was doing in front of the screen as well. I was
right,
like,
you can't help yourself.
That's out straight away. The
ball
wasn't there. So
that was a crazy moment, because I'd just gotten off air, and I just gone downstairs. Oh no, we were on the same level at Lords. So luckily for Adam Collins, like, we had a box which was right next door to the written press area. So I just, like, stepped out, and as always, I was just, like, talking to somebody, and I saw it happen, and I just wanted to run into the box to kind of talk about it. But before I could get there, the producer had run out, and they literally dragged me and put me on the spot. So it was funny how, like, if you see me a bit breathless in that clip, it's because I was just dragged into the box. And but you're right. I mean, once you've done some umpiring at any level, you just can't help it. Like, my finger just goes up, whether it's an LBW appeal, or you're kind of always like, I'm the Steve Smith of the commentary box anyway. So I'm always kind of with my hands kind of commentating what's happened. Like, so even if it's just a random LBW appeal, like, my hands will just go this way or that way, or do that, or it's just natural, I think.
Or a bit of bat inside edge.
Or a bit of bat, like, yeah, exactly.
Or 2 to go in the over, a while.
True. Or like, even the signal,
Yeah.
penalty runs. It happened recently, didn't it? Like, where did I see it happen? I think I was
it
at the
happened
game. Was it during the one day when the ball hit the helmet? I'm pretty sure. Or during the Champions Trophy, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Didn't happen when Australia were in Sri Lanka recently. It hit the helmet.
I think it was Australia and Sri Lanka because I was there at the ground when it happened. So it must have been the ODIs probably.
Yeah, it hit the helmet. And then 5
That is
penalty
right.
runs
Yeah.
were awarded.
That's
which is
correct.
a bit of
Yeah.
rarity in the game these days.
It is.
But,
It doesn't happen very often.
I think it cost Australia 5 runs, but it didn't matter in the end. They won easily in that series. So we'll talk about that a bit later. But yeah, umpiring and your teammates ask you things about the laws and saying, "Can you really do that? Can you do that?"
Yeah, true.
Yeah, you can. You can't.
You can get away with it. Yeah, I mean, there are so many ways of looking at it.
So and especially when you don't have any umpires at games and you're playing.
Yeah, true. When it's just like,
you're in, you know what you're doing. All right. So I always have my counter on hand, even if I'm not playing. Or
really? Oh, so that you can. Oh, cool.
Just in case, you need a counter.
Yeah. You need a counter. I completely agree. Yeah.
Even when I watch cricket, I sit there and count the balls with my counter.
Oh, wow. Now that is extreme. Yeah. All right. I've never done that. Maybe I should start doing that.
And I always signal 4 and 6 every time.
And I always. I don't know about you, Jack. Do you judge people if they they finish their 4 signal over there and not close to you? Like,
I know Joe Wilson.
I know that's bad etiquette.
Like that, and once he finishes there, he just goes back out again. I was like,
yeah, that's terrible. No. Like even someone. I think I pulled up someone recently in Sri Lanka. One of my journalism colleague or like journalist colleagues who did that. Like he did signal 4 like that, and I dragged their hand and like made sure it finished near their chest.
No, that's not how you do it. But you do pick up certain things like with umpires, like idiosyncrasies, like their mannerisms and their routine. Yeah. Like I know some umpires count with coins, like Richard Illingworth does. You always see him with the coins in his hands, and he always passes with one hand, puts it in the pocket. Richard Kettleborough has the click.
He does.
Counter.
He does.
Chris Gaffney has a bit of a routine where he looks at his counter before, and then he looks, he gets into position. You pick up on these things, Brad,
as an umpire, very much so.
On all these things.
Totally. Because I think we all, again, regardless of what level you umpire at, we all end up like with some sort of idiosyncrasies and like, just ticks almost. They're almost ticks, aren't they? Like even like the fact that some keep their counter attached to their belt, some keep it in their pocket. Like, so there's so much that you can pick up like that nobody else cares about or should care about, but you and I do.
But when you're an umpire like you and me, you do. And I know Joe Wilson does that. When he's attending to something, he puts it on a little clip on his belt.
He does, doesn't
holding
he?
the hat, the camera and the hat at the same time or on a clip. Umpires are like that. I've noticed that with Chris Gaffney. He does it. He alternates. He puts it on the clip, and then he holds it in the hands to the pace and the spinners.
He does doesn't both. He? Yeah.
I don't know why he does. Maybe it's a bit easier for him. Maybe for a spinner, it's only quick over.
Probably, yeah.
I don't know, but some umpires have these.
Question for him. Oh, the next time I bump into him, I'll definitely ask him.
Yes. When I interviewed Darryl Harper, he said, I clicked my counter before the ball was delivered.
Oh.
And then reset it if it was a no ball wide.
Yeah, right.
And I told that to someone because I interviewed another umpire. Because he wrote a book about his experiences in England on the podcast.
Right.
And I told him that. And he said, that's really odd. You're taught to count the ball when it's dead. So you know how to keep track.
Yeah.
Unlike if you're Peter Parker, who miscounted that time at Sheffield Shield match. I heard him talk about that and said, that was a 11 ball over or something. No, it didn't, because it was a drinks break and then he clicked his counter.
Yeah.
And then he didn't realize. I think it was a one-day match or something like that. South Australia were playing, I think, Queensland at that time I heard it. So you got to be alerted, umpire, Bharat.
You do, very much so. Or lean on your partner if you have a partner at the other end. So
yes, especially in club cricket, if you don't have a partner at square,
then it can become.
That's pretty difficult.
Yeah, it is. It is not easy.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But obviously, watching the pros, that's what I do, just to pick up a few things. Practice, because you can always learn from watching the game, even playing perspective and umpiring perspective, how they move, get into position. What's their process? How do they sell the decision?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a good
well,
point.
and I did listen to Maria Erasmus talk about the controversies in the India series with Australia when we had the Jaiswal incident and with
Yeah,
the MCG and that, and he explained the different technologies and about, the third umpire didn't quite sell the decision right. I think it was the
yeah,
KL Rahul one in Perth. He didn't have the right, picture or the
that
frames
is
to
correct.
sell the
Yeah,
decision. So it
yeah,
looked bad than it actually did. So, you pick up on these few things where other people just don't care. They're just like, oh, okay. But you and me, we pick up on that because
yeah.
we're
True.
umpires and, you understand a lot more about the game when you understand all
That's correct.
all the laws. So
Oh, very much so. That's such a
you
great point.
understand.
Yeah, it's you do look at cricket or look at the game differently once you are on top of the laws of the game. But not everybody has to, I guess.
Even I write. This is even weirder, Bharat. I even read the playing conditions in international cricket. No apparent
Oh
reason,
wow.
just to understand what's going on.
No, look, I do it at times like when like before a series or so, when you have to do commentary and like you said, like they do lean on me for
Mm.
anything that is umpire related. So yeah, and the golden rule of playing conditions are more important than the laws of the game. Like people often forget that. So they often refer to the law book and forget that the playing conditions are the ones which dictate what's happening in the middle, right? So yeah, I mean it's good to have and in fact playing conditions at times are more important than the laws of the game, because a lot of people do know the laws of the game. It's and especially with so much of league cricket these days, where the IPL, for example, has so many different rules when you
Mm.
compare it to the BBL. And yeah, so it's important to get your head around the playing conditions. So yeah, I mean, especially doing commentary on the IPL would be so difficult, because even this morning I woke up and I saw something that just come up on my phone about some player replacements, and it's so out
Yes.
there in that sense. So, and then you have something like the 100, yeah. So it cannot be easy for an
Oh,
umpire
yeah.
or a
No, it can't be
broadcaster
easy
to
for umpires
adjust
these days. Yeah.
all the
Juggling
time.
all formats and especially three
Yeah,
formats in international cricket as well.
correct.
I did
Mm.
notice in the Champions Trophy they brought in the height for no balls on Hawkeye now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And they flirt with it, don't they? Like they have it and they don't. And I guess it also depends on how much technology they have, what kind of technology they have. There's so much of that as well,
Hmm.
in terms of what gets used. Hotspot especially is so contentious. There are
Yes.
some countries which can afford it, some broadcasters who can afford it, some cannot. So it's all a little messed up in terms of how much technology and what aspects of technology and all that.
And obviously, for some time, India not playing with DRS and having test
Oh
match
yeah,
games
that
without
was when
DRS.
my peak. When my early days of covering Indian cricket was that used to be a challenge. Yeah, you'd go
Mm.
from not so for the longest period, I did not cover a cricket match which involved DRS, because India never used DRS till 2011 or 12, I think. So there was no DRS. So, but there was always a fixed question at every press conference: when will India, to MS Dhoni, when will India consider DRS? And so that became
And
a
I think they
fixture
always,
in.
yeah, I think they always said we don't believe ball tracking to 100% or something like that. They kept using
Yeah, MS used to have the same, or the one analogy that he would use more often than others was like, "Oh, would you travel in a bulletproof vehicle if someone said it was only 90% or 80% correct or 80% safe?" So that was his pretty extreme example or
Yeah.
analogy that he would use for India not wanting to use DRS.
Yes, and also LBWs and ball tracking. Umpires call percentage of the ball, the strike zone, of the stumps.
Oh,
I think Simon Taufel explained it pretty well on Channel 7 when he explained those
mm.
things,
It does a
giving an
good job
insight
of it.
about
Yeah.
Hawkeye and how it works and all
Hmm.
that. So we've gone off a bit of a tangent there, but
No, no, that's all right. As to
talking about
umpires
umpiring.
tend to do.
Yes. So let's steer it back on course, get the innings back on track. And you got into journalism,
Yeah,
and then you entered that. And then you became an author and a broadcaster from that. And here you are, in your current position as a journalist and covering cricket. So just talk us through, why did you go into journalism and branching into,
yeah.
writing books, which you have, and then going into broadcasting, commentating as you do now?
Yeah, look, I've been pretty open about that part of my life, Jack. In recent years, in particular, I didn't grow up wanting to be a journalist, so I think from a very young age, it almost felt like it was predestined that I would be involved with cricket, or cricket would be a huge part of my life. Like I said earlier, it was I had no identity without it, and like I didn't know life without cricket. So cricket just played like a significant part through the 90s when I was in school. Like I was playing it, uh, talking about it. I was the source of all cricket information for friends and family, even though there was no internet back then. I was the internet before the internet came along for a lot of them. And if I was not doing that, I was doing and I was playing. I was inventing my own games of cricket at home and playing with myself and my when there were no friends or kids, or they had school or whatever it was. And my parents always gave me the leeway to just watch as much cricket as I wanted to. So I will give that much to them. So whether it was like, waking up first thing in the morning to watch cricket in Australia, or going to bed late because there was cricket in the West Indies. And I still, till the time I went to school, or even with that, like if there was cricket in Mumbai or Bombay as it was back then. I remember there was an India Sri Lanka Test match in 1997 where it I think it went right through the week, so from Monday to Friday. So I was allowed to take, like, I just not go to school an entire for that entire week. I think my mother said I was sick or whatever. So she sent the sick note. But unfortunately, some of my friends knew where I was because I was at the Wankhede all 5 days. And later on, the next week when I did go to school, I found out that every time like the teachers were marking attendance that week, like five of them would just shout out, "Gone to the cricket." So I mean that didn't like bode well for me or my parents when I did
Well, they
go
ditched
back
on
to
you,
school.
Bharat. They
I
turned
know
you
they
into the
did.
authorities.
Absolutely, yeah. But look, I stood my ground, and so did my parents. I remember them being called, like, the principal wanted to have a word with them, saying like, I don't think you're allowed to do that. But no, they were like, look, it means a lot to him, and like, we think that is going to be his future, so it's fine. So I got into a bit of trouble for that. But look, it's cricket just was that thing in my life, and then like without going too deep into it, I just did lose track of life for a while. In the early 2000s, I like, dabbled a bit too much with drugs, and it wasn't in terms of the amount of it. Like, it was just what it had done to me. Like, I was just completely swayed off what you could call the beaten track, and I was dabbling with a bit of music and dabbling with everything really. So just all that experimentation didn't work out well for me. And I lost track of life, like I said, and lost a lot of ambition to do anything in life for a few years there. Overdosed a couple of times, almost died, came very, very close to dying on both occasions. And after the second time, I just said, look, I need to do something with my life. I just have been given the second innings in life, the one that I'd like kind of, I'm not a religious person, but one I did pray for. And so once I got that, and cricket had kind of kept me alive, kept me sober, kept me grounded throughout that period as well. So it had, like, because I was the cricket guy, I always had to know what was happening with the cricket. And the 2003 World Cup in particular, I remember vividly that I was really like drinking a lot. I was like high most times, but I still had to make sure that I knew what was happening with the cricket, because like, people would still, and this is still very early days of the internet. So I was still, Mr. Cricket, the Wikipedia of cricket back then for friends and
You were the
family and
original
neighbors.
Mr. Cricket before Mike Hussey came along.
Pretty much. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So, yeah. So, it kind of just played such a significant role in keeping me making sure that I was still on this planet. And so when I decided to kind of turn my back on the drug phase of my life, and just like not kind of want to live a little more, cricket was the one which came to my rescue. And I mean, I went to Chennai for to do a journalism course in 2007, purely because I just needed a break from Bombay. And it was on the back of that 10-month journalism course where I still drank a lot, but I think sort of got my life on order, or like kind of started believing that I do want to do something in life. And
Mm.
like I didn't imagine that I'll be sitting here, what, 17 years later or 18 years later, talking to you, and like, as a broadcaster and as someone
Mm,
who covers Australian cricket, or someone who's covered cricket for all these years, written books and all of that.
yeah.
None of that was planned. It was None of what I do is planned. It just I just go with the flow. I ride the wave, and that's really been the story of my life.
Yeah, no, you just sort of cool, you're walking to the press box, flicking the hair back,
I do.
wearing bright colors. Obviously,
Very
I didn't
much
get the
so.
memo today, Bharat.
No,
Wearing my
but
neutral
look,
today.
you're wearing merch, which is as important as whatever
Yes,
I'm wearing. Yeah, merch is very important. Yeah.
yes, it is, especially when you're promoting a podcast like mine.
No, very much so.
So, yeah. So, yeah, definitely. And obviously, the Australian Story episode, I watched that a couple of times in preparation for our
Thank
chat,
you.
and you went into great depth about what you just discussed before about dying, coming close to
Yeah,
dying, a near death experience, and that really really kicked you into gear and to get my life back on track and all that
it did.
stuff. Um, so any advice you would give to anyone, Barad, going through tough times?
Yeah.
You know, maybe in your position, similar, dealing with drugs or alcohol or mental health issues in general. What advice would you give to those people who are going through tough
Mm.
challenges in their life? What advice would you give those listening?
Oh, look, and so many of us do. I think the most important thing, which I didn't do, or I didn't have an access to doing, was it's so important to talk about it. And like I'm so happy that in 2025 we are going through, or we are in an era where, whether it's like whatever gender you are, and whether you're a man, woman, or whatever it is, you just have to talk. Like try to find someone who you can talk to. And I'm not saying everybody has access to a therapist or someone professional. Even if it's just to a friend or someone in the family, try talking about what you're going through. And the most important thing is like it's a word that gets used a lot. Hope is such an important word. Like without hope I wouldn't be here. Like without clinging on to hope of one day getting over whatever I was going through, all the anxieties, all the insecurities, all the willingness to stay alive. And I hope that I would somehow be able to overcome it and have a life ahead of it, whatever life it was to be. Like I said, none of this was planned, but I just like clung on to that hope, and that's so important. And with drugs, look, it's so difficult to kind of everybody goes through it differently. Like I know so many people who've been who kind of thrive on a bit of intoxication, or like a bit of cannabis, or a bit of like, and it's great. I mean, if it works for you, it works for you, but it's so important to kind of keep checking in on yourself. And that's my advice to anyone. Keep checking in on yourself as to whether you are in control of what you're doing in terms of drugs or even alcohol, or if it has taken control of you. Because the one thing I learned the very hard way is, I know they say it kills brain cells, it kills this and that, but most importantly, it kills ambition. Like, and if you're reaching a point where you don't think you have a reason to wake up to the next morning, if there's the only reason you're waking up is to get high, then you have hit rock bottom. Like you don't have to overdose, you don't have to go like suffer a significant incident in your life to think that you hit rock bottom. If you're waking up, or you're going to bed waking up with no ambition, and the only ambition is to get high, then there's something is up. And it's not always easy, Jack. I mean, people go through so many difficult challenges in their life, personally, professionally. But I think if you can just talk about it, like I said, if you can just cling on to that hope that there is light at the end of the tunnel. There is a second opportunity, second inning, second chance, whatever you want to call it, second term if you're a footy fan, and or at halftime, as Richmond found out last night. Like you can
Mm,
always turn things around. So yeah, and life is really like a game of Test cricket. It just is played out over such a long period of time that you have to be patient with it. Like yeah, and above all of that, forget about everyone else, forget about society. I always say, if you can just be honest to the person in the mirror, right? I mean, that can go such a long way. Luckily, I never lost that. If you start lying to yourself about who you are and where you are and what you're doing and who is in control of your life, then it's very difficult to come back from that. Like, so be brutally honest with yourself. And if you are, trust me, I've gone through it. Like, you can always turn things around, and you can make the most of your second innings.
Yeah, definitely. And you certainly have done that, Bharat, obviously. And great advice. And anyone who's struggling, if this has raised any questions with your mental health and well-being, please seek help. There's many great organizations in Australia that can help you. We'll leave links to those in the description of this episode. And also check out some of the episodes we've done on the podcast on mental health. I've spoken to some great people on that very topic. So do check that out if you can. Will definitely help you navigate your challenges, and obviously let's try and break the stigma down. Obviously, it's you got to look after yourself and make sure that you're mentally right and mentally fit, as we say. So great advice there, Bharat. Any favorite cricket books or books that you've written or have read? Bharat, favorite cricket tours you've covered, a favorite program you've done, or a player that you've interviewed? I know that's a lot for a question.
Oh, that is.
If you just had to break it down into what are your favorite things from all of those things I just mentioned in that question?
Well, when I start thinking about my favorites, it also kind of is a reminder of how long I've been doing it. It's once you're part of this juggernaut, which is cricket media, you do kind of lose track of time. And I often talk about it. Yes, for example, when we were in Sri Lanka, when people talk about, Australia preparing for the next India tour, you can't turn around and say, hey, hang on, that's 2 years from now. That's 24 months from now. But yes, it is long in terms of your normal calendar, but the cricket calendar is so packed that it almost feels like time moves quicker in cricket space than it does in normal space. And it certainly does if you are like me and you cover a lot of cricket and you travel around the world and are fortunate to be able to do that. So you kind of go, like, even when I look at the rest of this year, like, we are in March now, or mid-March, but I know that June I go to England for the World Test Championship final, and then right after that, from there I go to the Caribbean and do 3 tests that Australia will play. I'll come back, and before you know it, it'll be the home Ashes, right? And before you know it, we'll be in South Africa for the test, and before you know it, it'll be the next home season, and then the crazy 2027 the crazy year will be upon us. So my wife is aware of that as well. The dogs are aware of that as well. So things move so quickly, and it's good to kind of take a step back when you're asked a question like that about the things that you've done, because you kind of often forget times, like, oh yeah, I have interviewed this guy, or I'll give you it just came to mind last year during the T20 World Cup when the USA beat Pakistan and the Saurabh Netrawalkar was the big star with the ball. I remember I was in New York somewhere, taking a train back to where I was staying, and suddenly it came to mind. I was like, hang on, I did a big story interview with Saurabh Netrawalkar when he was a teenager about to play for Mumbai in 2009, and we're in 2024 here. When this thought came to mind, and then I've somehow found it, and this is when the newspaper I worked for, the Indian Express, didn't have any online archive, so I had to find it in my email, in my sent bit on my Gmail. So it also tells you I've been loyal to my email ID for that long, and and I read it and I was like, oh well, not bad, Bharat. That's a pretty good story. So it goes back to 2008 when I started. So my favorite, like in terms of books, like, look, I've written 3 books. I'm not the biggest reader. Like, just look at me. I'm just too hyperactive. I just can't sit in one place for too long. I do read every night before I go to bed, whatever it is, and I do read on planes. So if I don't find the person next to me very interesting, or if they're unwilling to talk to me, because I'm always up for a chat. So sadly, for people who travel or get on long flights with me. But the books I've written, there's the Dhoni Touch, which I can look at it. Right, it's right here. So that was my first book. I wrote it in 2000. 18, and it was launched on his birthday, July 7th. It was about MS Dhoni, the former India captain, and that's the book which still, has sold the most among all books I've written. I remember when Penguin India finished 25 years of Penguin Random House India is the company's name. They finished 25 years in India, I think last year or 2 years ago. So they picked 25 most influential books that they published. And the only sport book was the Dhoni Touch that I wrote. So it was pretty special when they had like a special edition that they printed of the book. From that, and then that was the first book. Then I wrote, Ghost wrote sort of one, or co-wrote one with Suresh Raina, the former India cricketer. And the third one, obviously, was The Miracle Makers, which I co-wrote with Gaurav Joshi, a good friend of mine from Sydney, who also has covered cricket. You might hear him here and then on Sheffield Shield commentary whenever New South Wales are playing. So that was about the last India tour of Australia, not the current, not the one that's just finished, but the one from 4 years ago, peak COVID and the drama that happened. And it's also like quietly an ode to Australia. I did a lot of driving around the country, so I mentioned a lot of regional Australia. So Broken Hill, from Broken Hill to Burua and everything in between gets a mention in a cricket book. So I took a lot of pride in that. So those are the three books cricket books I've written anyway, Jack. And I mean, of the cricket books I've read, there are so many. I don't know. Nothing really jumps out right now. Like, I'm just looking around to see if any of the ones that I've read or are around. I have the classic bookshelf in the back. This is and it's not by choice, not by design. This is the only spot I have at home in our house in the Adelaide Hills to do this, and which got the perfect lighting. So look, I mean, I like to go. Most of the books that I've enjoyed the most are books that go back in time, like the ones which were written in the 20s and the 30s. Not just because I love my history like you do, but even when it comes to, say, understanding Australia, a lot of my reading material has come from texts that were written or books that were written, fiction, non-fiction, semi-fiction, from the late 1800s and the early 1900s, because I just want to know how those people perceived the world around them. And often it's like a little sketchy. Obviously, there was a different world. But yeah, so even like the cricket books, and clearly I'm like just beating around the bush, not naming anyone. Look, I mean, CLR James, what do they know of cricket that cricket only knew? That was probably the first cricket book to leave an impact on me. And I think that was one I have revisited a few times since. But there's so much, and especially when you come to Australia and there's so much cricket content here. I'll tell you the first cricket book I did ever read, and it was beautifully written, and it's a very fun book. It was Sunny Days by the great Sunil Gavaskar. So it came out in the mid 70s. So he was still very much in the first half of his cricket career, and it's got a lot of great anecdotes, and Mr. Gavaskar being his witty self. So I don't think I've given you much. I'm sure other guests have reeled off like great books that they've read, but like I said, I'm not the biggest read, and I don't have the best memory when it comes to things that kind of involve me in terms of like what I've read or what I've written. Even people quote chapters from the books, and I'm like, oh, that's a good point. Where did you read it? And they're like, oh, from your book. Like, oh, sorry, yeah. So I don't have great memory of things I write, because I think that's also one of the reasons why I'm able to not take myself too seriously. I guess nobody does, but I don't get too hooked onto stuff I do. I, funnily enough, remember stuff that other people have written, or like my friends have written, or what I've read from them, and has made an impact on me than stuff that I've written. But like, look, there are so many great tours I've been fortunate to be a part of. The one test I always keep going back to, because it had such a long-lasting impact on me, was the 2014 Adelaide Test, India-Australia. Look, in the wake of Philip Hughes's unfortunate passing, a tragic passing, and and it was my first visit to Adelaide, like, which is now home to me. Like, yeah, so I came here, fell in love with the city, to go to Maxwell 3 days before the before Phil's funeral, and to understand regional Australia and how that tiny town was coping with the death of their favorite son, and then to be at the Adelaide Oval where they had the funeral play out on the big screen. And this just the morning of that test, Richie
Mm.
Benaud's voice kind of just when he says "rest well, son," and Greta Bradman singing the Australian national anthem, and you. Even for someone as stone-hearted and emotionless as me, even I was quite moved by, very moved by what I saw. It was a special moment. But look, there's so many historic moments that have happened while I was at the cricket. Like I was in South Africa, in Johannesburg, when Nelson Mandela died. Like, how can anything compare to that? I mean, you're talking about a
Mm.
modern day. No, he was superhuman, wasn't he? To so many people, and to be
And
in
he loved his cricket
Johannesburg,
too, Nelson Mandela.
I loved his cricket. Yeah, and one anecdote I love telling people about from that tour was there was a one day that finished that night pretty late at night. I was with this other Indian colleague of mine having a late night pizza when we knew Mandela was sick, but then we saw a lot of people run in one direction, and we just kind of left our pizza, paid for it, but then like ran with them and to the Mandela compound, and it was just a celebration of life. And 2 days after that, like, was the last ODI of that series in Centurion, and that was a Sunday, and that was Mandela's funeral. And I remember getting in; it was sunny, bright, like it is right now here. That morning, got into the cab, and the cabbie said, "No, I don't think you'll get much cricket today." And I said, "Why?" He said, "No, I mean, it's Mandela's funeral." I said, "Yeah, but like that's happening somewhere else. So we're going for the cricket." He's like, "No, no, no. In Africa, there is a belief that if you are a great man and you die, it will rain when kind of they cremate you, or when it's your funeral. Like it'll rain when they're bidding good adieu to you." And I said, "But where is the rain going to come from? Like there's no cloud." And I was being a smart ass, so I said, "Oh, so are you saying if it doesn't rain, Mandela isn't a great man?" And he just turned around and he said, "Brother, it will rain today." And anyway, so we went to the ground, and this is Quinton de Kock making his third straight 100 in that series. So South Africa batted, and they like de Kock, and there was enough time for de Kock to make the 100, and then the rain came from nowhere, like late afternoon. And it rained and it rained and it rained for like hours and hours and hours. We couldn't even leave the ground. And I remember thinking of that cabbie and going, "Oh, well, yeah, and Mandela was a great man." Like, so it was crazy. Like, those things just don't happen. It was quite special that, we were there for such a historic moment in the history of the world. But like, yeah, there's so many. I mean, being in Pakistan in 2022, I never thought I'll get to go to Pakistan, being an Indian or being of Indian origin, but I did, and it was so special to see Pat Cummins and his team win over there. But even back in the day when I started covering cricket, there was so many memories. 2011, going to the West Indies for the first time. Like, I'd grown up as a kid who wanted to play cricket for the West Indies, and to be there and to form the links that I did over there. And I guess in terms of the stories I've done, I guess the one that keeps coming back is the Patrick Patterson one, because of the way I got to find him and discover him, and to then play a role in his life where we're still in each other's lives all these years later. That was almost 8 years ago, that when I wrote that story. And yes, it got me global renown, but most importantly, it gave me an opportunity to be there for someone who needed someone, and in their lives. So that it's great. And I just heard very recently another former West Indian Jamaican fast bowler reach out to me and said he's kind of started helping Patrick as well. So that's great. Like, that's what I hoped would happen eventually. So that's good. So yeah, I mean, that's a story that kind of stands out. But again, there's been so many, Jack. Like, yeah, I don't want to sound like some artist who's recorded hundreds of albums and can't think of their best song. But in a way, it is like, yeah, it's just as a cricket journalist, it's difficult to. And those are as a writer. I mean, as a broadcaster, and obviously, like, going back to writing this, the Ben Stokes innings in Headingley, the World Cup final in 2019. So the World Cup final in 2019, I was doing commentary as well. It was my early days of doing color commentary, and to be part of such a special event, and so many. I mean, getting emotional when India won at the Gabba, despite never having been an Indian fan, but just understanding what it meant to India and to world cricket that that team could, be that was the one with a bowling attack with a total experience of three Test matches. That would be the team that would end Australia's run of, it would stop the Gabatois being a thing. So there's so much that I'm grateful for to have been a part of, and I'm sure I'm forgetting at least 100 other things.
Yes, well, it's very hard to sum it up in one question and choose your favorite. It's like choosing your favorite child. You can't decide, I suppose, Bharat. But yes, that's very true. There's so many great memories there, and you've achieved so much in your career as well.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Hope you enjoyed hearing Bharat and I discuss Bharat's cricketing, journalist, author, broadcasting journey.